So I'm going to run through a detailed, hopefully, presentation on upsell strategies and how you can use your Touch Day Guide specifically to increase revenue through offering upsells to your guests, and also kind of what type of upsells you should be offering, not just how you can offer them, but what you should really offer and how it's relevant to your guests based on where you are and what's relevant to your local area and your property. If you have any questions as we go, please use the Q&A box and pop your questions in there. And when we get to the end, we'll have a nice Q&A session where I'll answer all of your questions live. And even if you have questions about other topics, maybe that are related to Touch Day or just something else, whatever comes to mind, feel free to ask because we always have a nice amount of time towards the end to have a good natter. And I love getting questions on the spot. It's always fun. Super. So I will begin. Lovely. So in case you didn't know it already, Touch Day makes it very easy for you to offer upsells to your guests through your guidebooks. And one of the things that we found since our customers have been using our upsell widget, as we call it, in the guidebooks, and we found this during research in our host report that came out at the beginning of the year, is that when you add upsells to your guide and offer them to your guests, you can increase the amount of revenue you're making per booking by between 40 and 120 euros. Now, this will vary hugely depending on the type of upsells you're offering, how many you're offering, and how many guests you have, of course. And if you have 10 guests per booking or two, there's lots of variables to play into. That's why that number varies. But top line takeaway is that this is a really super simple way to increase your revenue per booking. And of course, offer more to your guests so they have a nicer experience. So, even if you've just got 50 bookings, not just, but if you have 50 bookings per year, between that lower end of 40 and that higher end of 120, that's between an extra 2,000 to 6,000 euros, or whichever currency you're working in, over the course of the year. So when margins are getting squeezed very tightly, every little additional point of margin that you can hold on to or grow is beneficial to the business. And as guests are booking with shorter and shorter lead times, things are becoming ever more unpredictable. The more you can do to have a bit of an additional revenue stream in there can only really be a help. So show me, Emma, what is this that you're talking about? So we have two nice examples from Touch Day customers showing what the upsell widget looks like. So this one is from a couple of months ago, and we've now upgraded the UI a little bit, but I wanted to show you the difference because I think it's really nice. So this is Curated Spaces. They are a lovely customer from the Isle of Wight, and they have positioned their upsells, their experiences that they offer their guests as booking extras. So additional things guests can book, particularly when they are arriving at the property. So here you can have a welcome hamper, you can book catering, and if you've got children staying at the property, for example, you can book a high chair or additional equipment. I think they have the additional items that might be needed for if there are children or babies visiting as well. So it's a really lovely way within your guide of offering things that typically guests do ask for, that they might reach out to you and ask for, but that you can beautifully curate and offer to guests directly within the guidebook. And I'll get a bit into how and when to do that later on. But this is what it looked like last year. This is kind of the beta version. And now, even better, you can see our newly updated the UI that the guest sees. So this is Anchor Bay Holidays. They're another customer of ours in the UK. And you can see, so on the left-hand side is the welcome screen of the Touch Day Guide. And you can see at the bottom here, we have this, all the experiences and the upsells now are in this little store tab. So when you click store, everything that you're offering a guest can be found directly here. So nothing is hidden within the guide and hard to find. It's right in the middle and very easy for the guest to navigate and see as soon as they open the guide. And here we can see things are categorized into different categories along the top. So here we have gifts and games, and there's another category called food and drink. And you can see here the first two that have popped up, which is birthday decorations. So if you're having a birthday party, guests can order something fun to have for their arrival or for the specific date during their stay when there's a birthday. and a chocolate and coffee pack as well. So if you want to treat someone to something nice on arrival, extra coffee, extra chocolates, can't go wrong. So these are just really nice things that guests, and as you can see here, can really easily add. So they don't have to get in touch with you to order these. They don't have to ask any questions. They can just order it. They can add the quantity that they wish using the quantity buttons, and then they add it to their cart. And then the biggest thing that's new here is that payment can now be taken directly from this point. So the guest doesn't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to follow up with them later to capture that payment. It's all taken through the guide. And I believe the store supports, I think it's about 15 different payment gateways. So the Stripe, for example, PayPal. So whoever you're using, no, I think it's about 32 of them, if I remember correctly. So there's a lot of different payment gateway options. So no matter what you're doing to capture payments already, it should, in theory, be compatible with that. There's lots of options, so you should be nicely covered. And as you can see here, when a guest, this is what it looks like when a guest has, bought a couple of things. So here we have, they bought a breakfast basket and then something else. It's just called something else because this is just from a test screen. And you can see that the guest, they put in their personal details, they agree to your terms and conditions, and they click proceed to payment. So that payment is taken all in the app. And then once the order is complete, it says to the guest, thanks for completing your order. So that whole journey of discovery, browsing, and payment is all done with inside the TouchStay guidebook. So this makes it super simple to offer the experiences to your guests and removes a lot of friction. So if guests are just browsing, they're getting excited about their holiday and they think, oh, look at these fun additional things I can add. Or, oh, yes, it's mum's birthday. Let's get her some nice chocolates. Or, oh, it would be super nice to have have dinner cooked for us one evening. Let's book that. This is a really nice way to have that all already centralized within the guidebook. You don't have to encourage guests to go somewhere else. You don't need to fall afoul of some of Airbnb's guest communication policies. It's all compliant and exists within your guide. So at the moment, up to 20 upsells can be added per guidebook. So, 20 is a nice healthy number. And so you can get a couple of different categories in there and offer a variety of different things based on what you want to offer and what's relevant and useful for your property based where you are. At the moment, based on customers of TouchStay who are already using this, there's an average of 2 items are ordered on average per booking. So, guests aren't just booking one thing. They're scrolling around and having a look what's available and building up a nice package for themselves, which is lovely. And I think this happens because it's so easy to make the purchase. Guests don't really have to overthink it very much. They don't have to log into Airbnb or, find different portals and places to log in. It's all directly there in the TouchStay guide. And again, that average value per booking number, to remind you of it here, it's a super nice way to get additional revenue for your business. It takes very little effort on your part. It's very little effort and friction for the guest. And it's a really lovely way, not just to drive that additional revenue, but be offering something more and interesting to your guests while they build up anticipation for their stay. So what kind of experiences should you offer your guests? It may be that I think it's around 40% of, I'm not sure if this was the UK number or the US number, but I think let's just take it as an overall, around 40% of hosts, people hosting properties or property managers are offering at least one kind of upsell or experience to their guests right now. So it's not everyone that's doing it, but it's a growing proportion because I think it's around 30% last year. This has really increased because of Airbnb's push into experiences. It was last year, I think, around the summer release, Airbnb's summer release, where they launched their experiences category. So anyone going onto Airbnb, they can book a experience as a standalone item. So it doesn't have to be attached to a booking. It can be, of course, if guests have booked to stay at your property, now they can book an experience to come into your property, which is a whole other topic, but they can also book experiences independently of their stay. So it's Airbnb really branching out. So because of that, experiences are becoming more and more common in relation to holidays and bookings and when people are traveling and things that they want to add to their holiday, their trip. But it's also because guests just want more. Guests are becoming a bit more demanding. They want to, not demanding in a negative way, but just really expectations are higher and they're hoping for more from their hosts, and offering experiences Upsells is a lovely way to do that. You're literally being able to offer more choice and more options to your guest. So let's have a look. What type of experiences do guests really care about? So these are the top 5 categories that you can find on Airbnb. These are the things that people are booking on Airbnb right now. So it's split into 5 main categories. And the biggest one by far is sightseeing and tours. So things like walking tours, bike tours, going on these little explorations in cities or small coastal towns. This is really getting to know a local area. So it makes perfect sense. You're on holiday, you want to explore the local area. And, I've been to lots of different places where I've gone on a food tour. And I always used to think, oh God, how cringe. Don't be one of those tourists going on a food tour. But I absolutely loved it. I did a couple of them when I was in Mexico last year, and I would food that I would never have eaten and never have experienced myself. So even though initially I was like, oh, that is a bit cringe, it's not. And I see now why guests really love them. So it's a great way to immerse yourself in something that's very close to a proper local experience and enjoy some good food. The next is food and drink. This makes complete sense. Private chefs, cooking classes, anything kind of food adjacent where you can taste something that's local, relevant to the area. In Barcelona, where I live, there's lots of paella making courses. So people going out and cooking these huge paellas and these big pans, big rice and lots of seafood. I've done one once with a work event for a team building. It's super fun. So depending where you are, what's relevant to your area, different types of cooking classes, and even having private chefs coming into the property to cook something special for your guests. This is something that's becoming more and more popular. Nature and the outdoors, this kind of makes sense. Often people want to go hiking and go on nice little outdoor explorations. But if you don't know the area and you don't have a guide, it can be a bit tricky. So booking this type of experience and having someone to guide you and make sure you have a very safe, enjoyable outdoor trip is lovely. So glamping, stargazing. I found an interesting statistic that in the US, the search for national parks is up 35% this year. So people are really looking to get outdoors and enjoy the surroundings of where they've booked their trips. Art and culture, obvious, makes sense. What do people want to do when they go traveling to a new place? They want to experience the local art and culture. So things that are popular on Airbnb, it's photography walks, being taken around a town or a certain area to take really beautiful photography, really lovely areas, very photographic. There's also walking tours looking at local statues or local art. There's a graffiti tour in London that I heard about, going around looking at all the different graffiti, which is kind of illegal, but sure. Not the tour, but the graffiti. But so that kind of thing is quite popular in big cities. And then finally, a category that's a lot smaller, but it seems to be something people are talking a lot about, and I've been reading more about, is wellness and fitness. I've accidentally copied my text here, but wellness and fitness. So this would be things like a yoga teacher coming into a property to perform a yoga class. This is quite popular for big groups, friends going away for the weekend, that kind of thing. And with fitness, some people have been booking, you can book a personal trainer on Airbnb to come into your property. And there's also things like outdoor fitness classes as well. So going for a run as a group or going to join an outdoor yoga class or something down by the beach. These are quite popular as well. So when we think about experiences, these are very much things you would do outside the property, occasionally inside the property, that are a real like moment of the trip, like a proper fun experience that you would have as a group, or if you're a couple, or even to go and join a group if you're traveling by yourself. So this is the kind of thing that guests are seeing, especially on Airbnb when they're on their booking journeys. And these are the types of things that are available. But upsells don't always have to be fancy or glamorous or, outside an experience to be had outside the property. The most important upsells are kind of those standard things that people want within the property during their stay to make them more comfortable. So the number one that guests request the most and has the highest margins. So it's kind of a no-brainer for everyone to be offering, regardless of your property type. In most cases, this is relevant, and that's offering early check-in or late checkout. Everyone wants to check out later, and everyone wants to check in earlier if they can. And if you make it very simple for the guest to be able to do this within the guide, and even if the price isn't that significantly high, and especially if your properties are empty and available already, and you're not having to do any rapid cleaning or any faster turnover, it's really nice to be able to offer this for guests, especially if you're offering early check-in. From the minute, even before the guest arrives, they already have good feelings and good vibes about coming to visit you because they know they've already got a nice benefit before they even arrive. And of course, for late checkout, people want to sleep in, maybe, just spend a bit more time with friends or family before they go on their travels. So this, if you don't offer anything else and you're like, I don't really want it, this isn't really relevant for me, this isn't right for my type of guest or my property. If you get guests calling you, texting you, emailing you, asking, whether that's, however they're asking you, there are many different formats. If they are asking you for early check-in or late checkout, creating that as an option within the Touch Stay Guidebook is a really nice frictionless way to offer that to guests. And of course, if it's not always available, you can just turn that availability off. It's very flexible. The next is mid-stay cleanings. So if you've got long stays, people are staying for 2 weeks, for example, long summer holiday kind of bookings, and especially for big groups, being able to offer a mid-stay cleaning, some people really like. They want to go out for the afternoon and come back and everything's been cleaned and tidied as if they were in a hotel. Very nice. And I would say actually that one is quite fancy. I prefer that to a walking tour, if I'm honest. So again, this is something that guests might be requesting that you can just offer there in your Touch Stay Guidebook. Another one is pet fees. Not every property allows pets, which is completely fine and acceptable. But if you are allowing pets to visit, but there's an additional fee for the additional cleaning that's required, you can add that as an upsell within the guide. And then another one is equipment rentals. So the example before with the high chair for the babies or a crib for a baby or a different kind of bed for children visiting the property. It can also be bike rentals, kayaks, if you've got a lake nearby, that kind of thing. So it doesn't always have to be a big fancy experience when we're thinking about upsells. It can be those little things that guests are already asking for anyway that make their stay more comfortable. You don't even have to think about in offering them or manage any additional communication. It all gets managed in the guide, and then you just have to make sure, oh, great, this has been ordered rather. Let's get that over to the property. So it's just removing a bit of that back and forth with the guest, and making it easier to capture that payment and get that booking sorted. Lovely. So when it comes to thinking about, okay, well, when should I be offering this to guests and how do I communicate it to them and how do I make sure they find it? These are great questions. So it's good to think of upsells and experiences in the context of the guest journey. So what do I mean by this? So for each stage of the guest journey, guests are thinking about different things. They have a different mindset, and they have different priorities. So let's kind of look at what a guest's journey might be. So post-booking, there's a bit of excitement. They've made their booking. And as soon as they've got that Touch Stay Guidebook into their hands, which depending on which PMS you're using, property management software, or how you manage getting that guidebook into the guest's hands, that can happen really quickly. So number one, the guest made a booking. Number two, great, here's your Touch Stay Guide. Start building anticipation and excitement. And oh, by the way, these are all of the things that you can purchase additionally if you would like to. So that's already hooking the guest in and getting them more excited about their stay. The next is pre-arrival. So early check-in is a fantastic one when we're thinking about pre-arrival. So of course, building pre-trip excitement is nice, but certainly pre-trip logistics. If you know that you're going to have a load of bags and your guests don't want to have to carry these around with them, if their flight's arriving early or their train or however they're getting to you is earlier than check-in, this is a really nice way to let them check in early. You get the additional revenue for the cost of that upsell, and the guests get to bring in their bags and just kind of drop everything off and go and enjoy themselves or settle into the property a little bit earlier. So that's a really, really standard nice one to have for your pre-arrival. During your stay, this is where some of those more kind of in-house experiences are nice. This can be the equipment, the non-glamorous stuff, the things that make a stay more enjoyable. Additional towels, for example, if it's a big group, or swimming towels if the people are going down to a lake or there's a swimming pool. Also, more like a lot of people when they're booking experiences now on Airbnb, it can be like, oh, who are you booking and bringing into my property? That's not really, there's a bit of an iffy area where you don't get to, as the host or the manager of the property, you don't get to approve that booking that's coming in. You just say, okay, great, there's a private chef coming into my property. But if you're offering it yourself as an add-on, not only do you get that additional revenue, you get additional control and visibility into what's going on at your property, and that can be super valuable. So instead of letting guests just have the option of Airbnb's experiences or other platforms that are outside what you can see, having those within your guidebook means you've got additional revenue, additional control, and a better understanding of the experience the guest is having at your property. Because if a guest comes along and they book a private chef that comes in and they have an awful time, that might end up on your review. And so what should have been a 5-star review because everything about the property and the stay was flawless, because they have a bad experience with something that they now associate with the trip and with your property, that negativity goes onto your review, and there's very little you can do about it. So lots of different reasons, if you can, for offering these things yourself rather than relying on the Airbnb version. And then post-stay. So there's a nice thing we can do here around building long-term loyalty with guests. So you can have a book again little experience, for example, with a 20% off. Or just a lower rate based on a booking window or a voucher or something that you'd like to offer. This is a nice way of kind of indicating to the guest, book again, book directly with me, and you'll get a discount. So these are all things that you can configure inside the Touch Stay Guidebook as an upsell. But this is really to get you thinking about, all right, what am I offering to my guest? When am I offering it? And how am I really thinking about this? And what I want to go back to here we are. So this is an example guide. And here I wanted to just come back to this cover page of the guide. So once the guests receive their guide, everyone's cover largely looks like this. Of course, different design, different images, but you'll have that banner along the bottom. And as soon as you start offering upsells within your guide, you get that little store icon at the bottom here. So you don't even have, number one, you don't have to tell guests that there is an option for them to book these additional extras. It's front and center for them. Secondly, when guests use the search icon here, they're able to use the AI chatbot that's within the guide that only uses the information that's already within your guide to surface the answers that guests will have, to give the answers to questions that guests will have. So if guests say, can I check in early? If that's possible and you've got that information within your guide and created as an upsell, when the guest asks that question into the chatbot, they will say, yes, absolutely. Here you go. Here's the information. Click here to book your early check-in. So it's number one, easy for guests to find. Number two, it's easy for them to self-serve. And number three, you're really cutting down on those questions that guests would have and kind of already over meeting their expectations before you've really even had to lift a finger because you've got your Touch Stay guide doing all of the hard work. And the next thing that you can do, if you're using Memo, which is the messaging tool within Touch Stay where you can send emails and text messages to guests. Emails is a little harder now because it's harder to get the email addresses, but we can still text, and it depends how you're connected through your PMS. Also, if you're connected through your PMS, you can send messages through there. But my point is, whether you're sending messages to guests through your PMS software or through Airbnb or booking directly or whichever platform you're using, or through the Touch Stay guide, you can take links to different sections of your guide. So the upsells page, for example, or different categories, and you can send those links to guests and say, hey, if you would like to have early check-in or late checkout, here are the links to do that. And you can just send that off in a little email or text message, and that can be automated. And you could do that for every guest if you want to. So you can take the different upsells that you're offering, and based on their relevance on the guest journey, you can communicate with the guest and let them know before, during, and after the booking what's available to them. So it's a really nice way of using the automation tools within Touch Stay alongside these upsells to let guests know. So you're not relying on them self-serving or hunting around. You're surfacing the right information for them at the right time, which ultimately is what guest communication is all about. Lovely. So I'll scooch back to where I was. Do, do, do. Lovely. So how to decide which experiences you should be offering your guests? You might be thinking, Emma, there's no way I'm offering a private chef. Like it's just not happening. I don't want to do that. And that's fine. You don't have to. There's lots of things here to take away as food for thought or think, even you'll be thinking, I absolutely don't want to offer those things. It's not relevant to my property. So in order to decide what kind of experiences or upsells you want to offer your guests, I would encourage you to think, number one, what makes your property or properties special? What about them stands out and is why your guests have booked with you in the first place? Maybe it's because you have a really large, beautiful lakeside property. And if that's the case and you've got a big group of people coming, likely there's kids coming. So what can you offer that will make the stay more comfortable for children or babies being on the property? Can you offer additional cleaning, this kind of thing, if it's a big group? And then thinking about what makes your location special. So if you're a coastal property, if you're in the woods, if you're in a city, there are certain things that guests might want. Bike rentals is a really nice one for being out in the country. Car parking is a really nice one for being in the city. So think about where your property is, what it is that guests kind of need or what would really enhance their stay. And instead of letting them figure it out for themselves, offer it to them directly through the guidebook. And then finally, thinking about what guests want to pay for when it's the right time to get it in front of them. Because if you kind of bombard guests with everything 5 minutes after their booking, they're like, oh, I just booked. I've got to wait for my next payday. Why are you harassing me? Think a little bit about slowly drip feeding this information to guests. So go back to that timeline. What's the right thing to say at the right time? And you can test this. You can test sharing things with guests a little bit before their arrival. You can share things with guests during their stay or on the first day. It really depends on how you like to communicate with your guests, how your guests like to be communicated with, and you'll know this best because you will know the behavior of your guests and the type of guests that you have coming to your properties. So these are just nice 3 questions to take away and think about when you're considering what type of upsells might be most relevant to you and to the portfolio of properties that you have, whether that's hundreds of properties or if it's 1 or 2. You can really tailor what it is you want to offer your guests and set it all up very nice and easily in the Touch Day Guide. So I've talked a lot. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'm going to jump back into the questions because I can see there's been quite a few coming in. Lovely. Oh, losing my voice. All right, lovely. Oh, lots of questions. My goodness. Okay. Let me scroll all the way up to these questions. So first question, how to hide upsell from Airbnb. That's a question from Donna. So you don't have to hide upsells from Airbnb. You're allowed to upsell to guests when they've made a booking with you. It's perfectly acceptable. Perhaps you're worrying about communication with guests. And so I did a webinar a couple of months ago when the new rules came out about communication with guests and remaining in policy now with the new rules that Airbnb released. So if you want to understand specifically what you can say to guests and how you can say it to them, I highly recommend going back to that webinar because it breaks it down into a lot of detail. It's too much to go into right now. But best thing to remember is Touch Day guides are compliant. We removed some features and adjusted a few things to make sure that everything remains compliant with Airbnb's policies because we always want to remain compliant and make sure no one is breaking any rules. So I don't believe you necessarily have to hide upsells from Airbnb or from guests that are coming from Airbnb because that's not in conflict with Airbnb. It isn't right now. That could change in the future, but for today, that is accurate. Question from Jill, will we get the slides at the end? Absolutely, yes. A recording will also be sent after the webinar, so you'll get everything. The question in another question from Jill, the equivalent in GBP of the I think it was the 40 to 120. I don't have that to mind, and I'm not good at maths, so but I'm sure with the conversion it would probably be around. It's probably roughly around the same. I don't think there's a huge difference, and with the pound and the euro being closer than they used to be, Well, depending. Again, I'm not good at maths, but I don't think it's hugely different. But we just happen to look at the data in GBP. Sorry, in euros. A question, how do you get paid for the experiences and the food guests are booking from your guidebook? Do you have to build a commission relationship with each of these service vendors? So all of the upsells that I've been talking about, the ones that you create within your guide, these are offered by you. So when a payment is taken, it doesn't go to a third party and there's no commission. That payment goes directly to you. So if you're offering a grocery basket on arrival, so guests, let's say it's 50 euros, 50 pounds, $50, whatever, to get a little basket of groceries upon arrival. So you've got some things to get you started. You'll set that up in the Touch Day Guidebook as an upsell. You'll set the price, and when the guest purchases that item, that payment will all fully go directly through to you. And then however you're managing getting that that grocery delivery to the guests and how you would pay for that, of course, to get it over to them. All of that money is kept by you. These aren't additional third parties that are offering these services. These are services you're offering yourself. That is a good point, though, because we do have integrations with Viator and a couple of other experience partners at Touch Day, where if you're like, Emma, I don't want to do upsells myself. I don't want to offer any of this myself. It's too complex with logistics, so it's just not something I'm interested in. You can embed little widgets in your Touch Day Guidebook from a few of our different experience partners. And then if a guest books anything, they click on a link in your Touch Day Guidebook, they go to a third-party website and they make a booking, you'll receive a commission on that. So that's a really nice way to get extra commission, which is extra revenue, and not have to do anything. So if you're thinking, I just want a light lift version of this, that's a way of doing it. But when you're offering these experiences directly through the guidebook, all payment goes to you. Another question about Airbnb. Does marketing experiences through Touch Day violate Airbnb rules? No, because these are, the way it's classed is they are related to the booking. So you're allowed to communicate to guests around, once they've made a booking, anything relating to the booking. There are other nuances there, but generally speaking, you're allowed to, because for example, early check-in, late checkout, that's relevant to the booking. So you're allowed to communicate with the guest on that. They're allowed to ask you for it. You're allowed to offer it to them. And thus far, Airbnb hasn't come out and said anything that you can't offer your own experiences or your own upsells to guests. And certainly for the ones that are more functional, the non-glamorous ones I've mentioned, because these are related to the booking, there shouldn't be any conflict with the Airbnb rules. A question from Donna. For third-party experiences requiring a payment to the agent, how are payments managed? Oh, so again, I think I've answered this one a little bit already because we had a similar question. So if you're using a third-party experience, I'm not entirely sure how the commission would be paid, whether it comes through that partner, if it comes through Touch Day. That's a good question for support. That's more of a technical one. So if you are really keen to understand, you can send an email to support@touchday.com, support@touchday.com, and you can ask your question about that, because that's the third-party experiences. But when you're taking payment for upsells that you're offering from the guidebook, that payment goes directly to you through the payment gateway of your choice. And what next? Question from Holly. How does one go about activating the store? So the store, I believe, kind of pops up itself once you create your first upsell. So when you're in Touch Day, the way you add these the upsells, it's called a widget. So depending on which category you're in or which part of your guide you're in, you're able to go to the menu and navigate to find the upsell widget. Then you configure the information, the pricing, the description, images, whatever you want to pop in there. And I think once you have that first one created, then that store icon is visible. I do believe the store icon can be removed or added. If you do, you don't want it there on that bottom navigation bar, but I would need to double check that, but I do believe that is the case. Is it possible to send a direct link to an individual item? Good question, Ken. Yes. So let's say, for example, you have that that upsell that is for a late checkout. You can take the link to that very specific section of your guide and send it to your guest, whether that's through an Airbnb message, a message through your PMS, or a message from TouchStay's internal messaging tool. You can pick up that very specific guide section link and send it off to them. So the guests don't have to kind of navigate and find their way through the guide. It just opens at that exact spot. So nice and easy. Lovely. Who updates the guide as services come and go? Question from Jill. So let's say, for example, you're out of stock. Let's say you're I know one of our customers had embroidered beach towels, really cool stripy beach towels with the name of the property on their brand. And so for that type of product, let's say when it runs out of stock, you will set a stock amount within the upsell, and when it goes to 0, it's sold out. And then you would just adjust that stock to go back up as and when you have it. So as things come and go out of stock, you can manage that yourself in the back end of TouchStay. Lovely. Question from Christian. How would you recommend upselling add an extra night to your reservation? Ooh, that's a really nice one. And that's a really good upsell and quite a nice revenue maker as well that I hadn't thought of in the context of this webinar. That's super smart. Thank you, Christian. I will steal that for the future. That's super. So this is a really good direct booking tool as well. Gold star for Christian. So yes, let's say you want to offer guests the opportunity to add an extra night. So this one can be tricky because you don't always know when you're going to have additional nights. And is something you'd have to be quite careful about not offering if it's not available. But this depends on how frequently you're booked, how frequently you get cancellations, and what the typical length of your stays are, and if it is very typical for guests to ask for an extra night or not. So if this is super typical for you, guests are asking this all the time, and you feel very comfortable managing the availability of offering extra nights, you can add that as an upsell within your guide. It can be something that you just have within the guide that you set at 0. If you know that you definitely don't have any additional nights for the next couple of months of upcoming bookings. But then if you think, hey, okay, we've had a big cancellation, but I know I've got this booking coming in next week, they could potentially book an extra night. You can set that upsell live, and you could send an additional manual notification to the guests to let them know about it, so that they have that additional opportunity to book an extra night. So thank you, Christian. That's a really great question. When will we be able to put the store in different languages, as now it's only in English? So I was under the impression that once the guest, so on the very front of the TouchStay guide, that cover image, when the guest opens the guide and they get in, there's a little globe icon at the top, and the guest clicks that, and then they can auto-translate the guide to the language of their choice. I was not under the impression that the store would stay only in one language. I thought that would also be translated. But Christelle, who's asking this question, if you wouldn't mind just responding and letting me know if I'm correct or incorrect, because as far as I know, it auto-translates, but maybe it doesn't. Lovely. I'm just conscious of time. Oh, question from Mario. Interested in adding upsells to your guidebook. Lovely. Do I have any examples that you can view? So the examples that I showed you earlier, if you go to the TouchStay website and you search in the drop down under, I think it's under features. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And search for upsells. It'll take you to that page and show you a few of the examples a bit bigger that I ran through today. You can zoom in and have a look in a bit more detail. Lovely. We have 5 more minutes. Christelle has come back to me about the translation piece, but if it is not auto-translated, it doesn't work. So it should, I do believe it does auto-translate, but if you have tried this and it isn't translating, then potentially there's a bug or something I'm not aware of. It should automatically translate as the rest of the guidebook does, but perhaps this sits a bit differently. Let me just see if you've asked again. Right, I see. Christelle, thank you for following up. So Christelle says auto translation is not always correct and makes a difference than the manual translation. Yes, I completely agree. So there are two ways of managing translations with TouchStay. You have the automatic option, which just pulls from Google Translate, which, as we know, Google Translate is not always 100% accurate. I live in Spain, I'm learning Spanish, and I know when I've translated things over into Spanish, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, that's not correct. Like, something must be going off. So yeah, Google Translate is not always perfectly accurate. So the second option is you can add manual translations to your guide. So however many languages you want to offer manual translations in, you add those into your guide, and then you have to, it is a bit laborious, but where accuracy of language is extremely important and very relevant to the type of guest you have coming to your property, it can often be very worth it. I completely understand the importance here of having very accurate translations. You just have to go in and take everything that you have in English or another language and then do the translation yourself, whichever tool you're using, or if you're a native speaker, and you do have to just duplicate that for each language. So it is a bit laborious, but it is those are the two ways that we have to doing it. Lovely. Okay, I'm just jumping around on my questions. A question from Wendy. Wendy says, I'm new to TouchStay, and although I've purchased it, I haven't yet started to populate it. Do you have any tutorials on how to do this? That's a really great question, Wendy. So number one, our YouTube channel. If you search through there, there's lots of really nice examples on how to get started, where to start, what to do first, that kind of thing. If you also go to our website and look under resources, you can go to our knowledge base where we have articles about getting started as well, and kind of the first 10 things to do and top tips. If you've done absolutely nothing and you're brand new to TouchStay, you can also use our guidebook generator. So if you already have your property listed on Airbnb, for example, you can take that listing link, you can pop it into a form on I think it's on the TouchStay website. That's the best place to do it. And then it will auto-populate a guide for you. So this is a really nice way of getting all of that information that's already in your listing populated within your guide. So all the images will carry over, descriptions, other information about the property. It will populate that in your guide. So that's a really nice way to get started. We have a Facebook group called the TouchStay Rockstars, which is full of other TouchStay customers, and people are often sharing examples of their guides so you can get inspiration. There are also examples of guides on our website as well. So lots of resources for you to have a look and find what works for you. Lovely. We'll do one more question. Let me see. A lot of people are asking about the extra nights booked. That might be a good one to even just do kind of a separate follow-up on. So maybe we'll follow up on this because a lot of people seem to be super interested in that. What else? A question about early check-in. So saying, since depending on if other prior guests, this may or not be feasible. Absolutely. So again, like with the additional night, if you've got time buffers built in and you know that it's generally speaking possible for you to offer a couple of hours extra early check-in, you can just turn that on and leave it available. If it's something that you don't always have built in to your time planning with your cleaners or your turnover, then that can be harder to offer as something that is entirely bookable by the guest. What you can do is you can set this up and have it as not live, so just have it in draft. And then if you know the day before a booking, for example, oh great, I've got these people coming tomorrow. I'm now able to offer them early check-in. You can turn it live and then take that link and send a message to the guest with that link and say, hey, if you wanted to, you can check in early. So these kinds of things that do depend on turnover and whether you have back-to-back bookings. You do have to have an element of flexibility here because you can't always offer early check-in and you can't always offer late checkout. So that definitely a bit of planning and being prepared and having things ready to go in the back end and then turn it on if you are able to offer that is a nice way to manage that. Oh, lots of questions. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. We've just got 1 minute left, so I wanted to share my screen one last time and just share two resources with you. So this is great for, I think it was Wendy who was asking about creating a brand new Touch Day guidebook. So if you scan the QR code on the right here, this will take you to the guidebook generator, and you can create your first guidebook in 60 seconds, I think. Yeah, 60 seconds. So it's a really nice, useful tool. So anyone else here who's brand new to Touch Day, hasn't created a guide yet, or maybe you're just curious, you want to see what it's all about, this is a really nice way of being able to see what a Touch Day guidebook looks like, populated with all of your property information. And then on the left, some of the data that I've talked about today comes from our host report that came out about a month ago. And I did a webinar on that, our last webinar as well. So go check that out on our YouTube channel if you're keen to dig into that. But if you scan the QR code on the left here, that takes you to the report. You can download it yourself. It's free. It's full of information. And this is based on kind of data we've gathered from hosts and property managers from all over the world. It's super interesting. So if you've got time with a cup of tea or coffee in the morning, it's a really nice read. It's just packed full of insights and kind of quotes and interesting information from lots of people all over the world who are managing professional hosting businesses, whatever the correct terminology is. But it's super interesting. I really enjoyed reading it and talking about it on our last webinar. So 2 resources for you there. If anyone has had a question that I haven't been able to answer at all or not answer sufficiently, do feel free to send any technical or very specific questions you have to support@touchday.com. Our support team are wonderful and always very happy to help. And if things get super technical or you're just a bit confused or lost, they're able to get the answers you need. There you are. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope this has given you a bit of inspiration for the different ways that you can use upsells within your business, and also got you thinking about how you can use Touch Day to help you get that done. I really appreciate you taking your morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world, to join, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye.